Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Dark Matter, as well as the latest episode of Wynonna Earp. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you don't want to hear what I have to say about this week's episode of Dark Matter, you can skip to what I have to say about this week's episode of Wynonna Earp. But the first thing I want to talk about is this week's episode of Dark Matter. So, a very interesting episode when we do see that Boone ended up taking to Rio. I was thinking we're actually going to get like a flashback, like a flash forward type of intro first, because what ended up happening, it seems, is like the moment Two's like in front of him and everything, and he's asking about the blink drive and stuff. I was thinking like, okay, this is after a little while or whatever, and now she's in front of him, and now like she's about like she ends up attacking the guards and everything, and kind of fights him a little bit. So I was thinking like, okay, so this is, it's going to rewind for a bit, isn't it? It's like, no, it isn't. That's present day. And so basically what comes down to is the crew has to decide what they're going to do. It's like, we either give him the blink drive and go meet with him because he wants to meet with us, or like, you know, he's going to hurt too. So it was a very interesting episode because you had Rio, I mean, for one, having another assassination attempt on him. Like, before anything else, go ahead and talk about the fact is that was Masaki. I'm not too surprised it ended up being her behind everything. What I'm surprised about is her motives. I was thinking like Masaki was doing everything because she wanted to keep Rio on edge, because it did legitimately seem like all she wanted was to make him a better leader and stuff like that. So what I'm curious about is has she always had this intention ever since he got his throne back in season 2? Or is it just something that's happened over the course of the series so far? And she was just kind of like, he's being so indecisive. He's listening so much like Teku. It's like the situation, like I'm wondering whether it was really because of that, or was she always like this, thinking like, you know, the way he claimed his throne back, did she never really 100% believe him? It's just the fact, I mean, I don't know. I feel like she really wouldn't have went through, you know, her and the others wouldn't have went through killing like the Empress as well as his half brother if she didn't actually believe him. So it just, now I'm sitting here thinking about it and talking about it more. It does seem like it's more likely, like over the course of time, it's just like, yo, Rio is weak and everything. So I didn't expect her to actually betray him like that. Granted, I'm curious, like the way she was like, kill Rio, so the fact is that a stronger leader can take his place. So I'm guessing, I guess for now, she would end up taking his place or whatever. It's like, what did Masaki really think? And I guess, and ultimately, I should have figured, I kind of figured it was going to have that type of conclusion, considering the fact is that her, like Masaki and Six had that whole conversation of he's like, yeah, I know Rio's not the one that actually killed Nyx. And just basically had that conversation. She's like, oh yeah, I did it so he could be a great leader. He didn't have to tell me to do anything. That's like, he's like, you're a sociopath. And then she's like, oh, this is coming from a mass murderer and that small. It's like, yeah, I was like, I just knew from the beginning, like Masaki was just like all over the place, especially considering what she did to Nyx and lying about it, you know. So I mean, she probably admits it later on. Granted, she didn't admit it until after she had already done it. So I don't know. But I mean, karma is a bitch, because she ended up getting dealt with before she could deal with Rio. Two came up and saved him and dealt with her. Same manner, left to suffer from that poison. I mean, she actually got it harder actually, because Nyx only got like the poison from a cut. She got the full knife in her, I guess, her chest. So yeah, you actually feel a little bad for her because of the whole. Because me, I always looked at it as like, I was also like another reason why she, you know, the whole Nick situation was also, you know, out of jealousy too, because she talked about it last season how she loved Rio at one point in time and would have done anything for him. So I thought that kind of played into it. Maybe it did, but for her, it's like, no, Zyron comes first. So was it her specifically making that decision? They're like, oh, they need to be dealt with, like, certain things, like, along with that situation that kind of got me thinking, too, is, like, the fact is that she, like, at that same time, we had the whole Android conversation with, the Android, is, like, putting in her upgrade, and it's like, oh, yeah, prepare for the human, like, oh, machines are going to usurp humans and stuff like that, and then, like, you know, you have the android being like, I mean, yeah, humans kind of have their faults and everything, but we can't do this. We try to break the system. Billions of humans will die and stuff like that. It's like, well, and the program is kind of like, well, humans have to learn and everything. So I figured as much. Like, this is something, like, once again, this is another, like, future event and everything, and it just, you see the android is not down for it, but once again, it seems like it's a situation. The question then becomes like, will she really have a choice going forward or not? Like the fact that she put in an upgrade, maybe they'll feel the need to be like, you're not complying with us, sorry, but we're taking control, and like take control of her or something like that. Which in a way would defeat the whole purpose, because it's all supposed to be about free will, but then you're kind of taking someone's free will away. I mean, last time we saw Irina and mix Sarah up in all of this, because now Sarah has a mind of a human, so she doesn't have to worry about having the programming of an android, so she has even more of an advantage, because it's not like she needs an upgrade to stay herself, because she is all her inside of that android, all inside of that android's body. So I feel like Masaki wouldn't do that on her own. Maybe she would. I'm thinking there's still a hierarchy to this, that someone else set it up for that to happen. And then immediately, you know, like I said, along with that conversation, because we do know that, you know, maybe, you know, it's like, oh, the revolution has already started. So there's maybe, I don't know. I was going to say something else, but now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, it's not what we're going into, because I'm like, that, because I was legitimately in my head, I was connecting the simulates to the android revolution for whatever reason, when those are two separate things. At least I think they are. But there's still the question of like who hierarchy that whole thing, unless it really was 100% Masaki and just was other people, but not the way I thought Zyron would fall. And that was pretty interesting how that was done like that, because I legitimately thought like, yeah, 4's not going to make it out of this alive. I mean, arguably you could say that at the end of the episode, because it's like, oh yeah, because they had the choice of like, oh, do we kill 4 or do we, I mean, well, not 4. I keep doing that. I always have to refer to him as Rio, because Rio is Rio. Rio is not 4. Even this person is Rio, not 4. You know, there's a difference. So, but I'll kind of dive into that a little bit later on, the whole 4's fate and everything like that. But the thing I was before I went on a huge tangent and everything, what I wanted to talk about first too was about how 4 manipulated everyone, because he told everyone a little bit of enough to like kind of entice everyone, because it was all to get them on this side. Because for 2, it's like, no, why are you guys here? Especially when she was talking to 5. Why'd you come here? The fact of the matter is, you shouldn't have come here, because now he's going to try and trick you and like use you guys in a, like you're going to be sitting here and you're going to listen to his speech, and it's going to make you more likely to want to give him the blank drive. And he told each respective one of them something that kind of enticed them a little bit, like kind of playing on them a little bit, showing you that manipulative side of Rhea. He ended up telling 3 the big secret we've been wondering this entire time, why he was avoiding 3 and what this was all about. And Rio explained that it was actually Boone who made Sarah sick, because basically he went back to his thieving way, stole some material called ceruleum, left it at the cabin, and it was poisoning her the entire time. The question then becomes, it seemed like Sarah knew. Either she looked in, like, you know, her being a computer program, she probably looked into it now. Because the question is, the way she acted when she first saw Boone makes me think she didn't know. But now, like, you saw that look on her face, like she knew what 4 was going to tell him. So now I'm like, oh, do you think like she did know, or is it the fact is that, you know, she was worried that have him finding out, or was it because like she ended up, you know, being a computer program and she ended up searching a lot of stuff behind? Maybe she started looking up a lot of stuff about Boone and found out about what he did around that time they were together, and it started, you know, the puzzle pieces fell into place in her head or something like that. Maybe that might be more like it. I thought it was kind of interesting. The fact is that 3 couldn't handle having that information, so he let his clone die in this episode just so he wouldn't retain that information. So it's sad that I don't know though. I feel like, you know, with the way everything works, I feel like eventually that's going to come back around. He's going to end up like, there's no way that's going to stay buried. Eventually he's going to like end up finding that information again, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see on that front. But it's like, it's sad because it's heartbreaking, because it's like, because for one, you know, this isn't Boone anymore. This is 3. And now he realizes like, holy crap, this guy, that version of me, he loved her, and yet he's the reason why she got poisoned. He's the reason why she's dead. Like, like, you know, because it's almost, for him, it's like hypocritical. It's like, I bring you along, I try to keep you alive and everything, and but I'm the reason you got sick. I'm the reason you died, you know? So it's very heartbreaking. You know how conflicted it left 3, because it's like, he didn't want to remember that anymore, so that's why he put everything. The moment he was like, yeah, you guys go on ahead, I was like, you're going to let your I thought he was going to do it himself, but it's just like, I don't know. It's very sad, dude. He explained to Five, telling her more about her sister. And it was kind of interesting too. Why, Rio finally explained to her like why he didn't space her, because it's like, yeah, out of everyone, like he's like, I saw your potential, and also amongst everyone on the crew, you are the only one that's still like you. Yes, like you already saw what Portia, Boone, and Six were kind of like. Even himself was like, once they had lost their memories compared to who they were originally. But Five, when she was Emily, she did not change. She was still kind of the kind-hearted girl that she is now, So I think, that's why he always probably was like, oh, it's like, he's still like, oh, look at you. You're the only person that didn't change, because you essentially weren't a monster before like the rest of us were. Granted, each one of them had their own particular situation, but nevertheless. He did reveal to her, though, more about the people who adopted her sister. But the fact is, you see Five looking at it like, wait, whoa. So there's a part of me that's like, what was it that was so... Brain goes, is it a family that we've met over the course of the series? It has to be someone that we know. I'm wondering, could it be like she was adopted by the same lady that was set out to kill Five to get back that blank drive piece? So I'm curious, was it gonna be that, or what? It's definitely gotta be someone we've met. Maybe it's gonna be someone's daughter we haven't met yet, but it's gonna be someone that we've met over the course. Just the way that she had that reaction like that. So I'm very interested to find out who that whole thing is, because they're keeping that so tight-lipped on like who her sister is and who her sister's connected to. It makes me question that, because like the fact of the matter is, maybe just throwing it out there, like going outside the realm and everything, maybe they haven't decided who they're going to cast as her sister yet. So it's probably going to be something that plays a big role going forward, I would assume. Just the fact is that they haven't just gone ahead and shown her face yet. So I think that's something to kind of consider. Or not unless we have seen her face and we just waiting for the right moment to be like, blam, it's this person. It's like, whoa, her sister's blah, 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 type of thing. So nevertheless, I'm really excited to find out what that's all about. Like the way she was shocked and everything, like, no way, like almost like this can't be right. So he also ended up telling Six that he was actually betrayed, because he's like, do you ever wonder why you got caught by us and would have been potentially killed if it wasn't for Five? Do you ever wonder about that? He's like, oh, I was just sloppy. He's like, no, someone in the GA ratted you out. So whoever it is, it was Portia's inside guy. Well, whoever it is, it's someone that Portia knows. So immediately my brain goes, could it be his friend? Could it be him? Maybe that's why all this stuff like worked out the way it did, because like for him, it's like, you lost your memory and everything. He's like, maybe this is my way of making up for the fact is that I almost had you killed. That basically me betraying you led to you almost getting killed. Maybe that's why he's trying to be even more of a good friend and helping out Six, because he realizes Six isn't kind of bound by all the problems that... I mean, I doubt it. There's probably more to it than that. I mean, that could be the obvious route, but I don't know. Maybe there's someone else that we're not seeing. I mean, especially the way like Rio kind of puts it, making it seem like it's someone higher up in the position, probably. But he also revealed some interesting information to Two as well, telling her that she actually has a kid. No one else is a part of the conversation, but it's like this kid is mixed with her, like her DNA mixed with the DNA of Irina, so she has a kid out there. Had no idea where the kid is, but it's someone that she trusted enough to leave the kid with. So that was kind of fascinating. Man, this was like the season of secrets, because we'd already thought like we knew everything there was to know about each of their respective situations before like their memory loss. But it's like, nah, you thought this was over about them losing their memories. There's a lot more on top of this, and it seems like all of this stuff combined with everything. 3 learning about the whole truth about Sarah, 5 and her sister, 6 in this whole situation with who betrayed him, and 2 with a potential daughter, the android of her whole revolution thing going on. It seems like these events together will ultimately lead to the team falling apart. I mean, sure, there's going to be other things contributing factors, but I think these individual story things that they're going through is what's eventually going to lead it to the future where you have 5 being alone on his ship. I mean, it's interesting too, because for 5, she puts in a situation of like, everyone else is talking about like, let's fight destiny, let's fight it, because 2 is always living in, she's like, we need to stop living in what ifs, because it's like, yeah, if we didn't show up, what if we didn't show up? Like Rio would have done something to you. It's like, But like, you know, Five is also like, but you're living in what ifs all the time, because like this whole situation happened because it's like, what if we give it to Rio? What would he do? What if it ended up in someone else's hand? And so on and so forth. It's like we're always constantly living in what ifs. I mean, especially going forward now that we know that there's a potential future laid out. I mean, because also the question comes out of like, can they change anything? And it's like, even Five's putting it like, we can't change anything. There's no like, even if we seem like we're moving away, there's always a little course correction, because the fact of the matter is there's no changing it. It's more like going along with destiny. So, which is sad, because it's basically saying that you can't fight it. Everything is predetermined. The moment things were from the very beginning are always planned. From the very beginning that Raza was formed, like even way before that, their lives were already determined to be this way. So there's no changing it. I mean, granted, to be fair, we know what the alternative is because the alternate reality exists. So, I mean, overall, dude, a crazy amount of stuff went down in this episode. Crazy amounts of information. So, Zyron has fallen. That's pretty heavy. Legitimately, like I said at the beginning, I thought 4 was going to die with it. Once again, though, going back to the conversation of like, well, his fate hasn't been decided at the end yet. Spoiler alert, I do know how it ends. Why? Because I ended up turning my head at the wrong time and ended up seeing the preview. I spoiled it for myself. I hate myself so much. I was like, I think there's a part of me that wanted to go ahead and know anyway. Obviously, I won't tell you. I won't say anything in this. I mean, I'm sure you can guess, but I mean, it's still like a 50-50 shot on which way that could have went, so. Also felt like his fate was decided, because it's like, even if he was having a conversation with 6, it's like, no matter what happened, I still did like bear the responsibility of what Misaki did to Nyx, because, you know, that was still me playing, like, things played out because of my actions and stuff like that. And I think it was 6 himself who basically said there was fault on both fronts. Like, 6 could have handled that situation better, and like Rio himself could have handled that situation better, and it led to things playing out the way they did. So, and now I'm sitting here thinking about it, because I was also checking my notes too. Makes me wonder, I would assume Ferris Court probably has something to do about it. Now I'm sitting here thinking about the whole, like, because they had that whole proposition with Rio that's like, oh, basically make sure that you know, everyone's gonna have to pay up when this whole war is coming to an end, because Ferris Corp is like, you know, you have Neiman being like, yeah, we're coming to the close on this war, and the fact of the matter is that when it's all said and done, everyone's gonna have to pay up. Kind of basically saying like, make sure you're on the right side of this whole situation, of the ledger, so that when it comes down to it, like, yeah, you're on the right side of this when it's all said and done, you know, as for, you know, Zyron's sake and everything. So I am curious to see what happens to his people who were so against him, though, because you had Teku from the very beginning has always been the voice of reason, of like, don't just go willy-nilly and crazy, because eventually, like, these people are just like, they're losing trust in the Emperor. But you see the conversations between him and Misaki. It's like Teku saw Misaki's betrayal coming from a mile away, because he's just like, I wish we don't have to fight. The fact is that she set him up and everything. I was like, oh man, she's setting him up into. But there was a part of my brain I was like, maybe he really is a bad. It's like, no, she's setting him up for Rio to kind of turn against him. So once again, the Misaki thing is also sad, because that is like one of his childhood friends too. So. But I think on some level, Rio was going to get past it anyway, because it's like, well, she did what she did. So, you know, she got what she deserved, and it's, you know, my time, you know, so. Which isn't implying anything of whether or not he survives or not. Me saying it like that. Anyway, I'm not sure, but I think next week's episode is the season finale, which is definitely going to get crazy next episode. Like, I mean, with all this new information under everyone's belt, this revolution that's happening with the androids, it's going to be a crazy episode next time. I wonder, did the android tell anyone about that, or is she keeping it hush hush? I guess that would tell you a lot about that. I mean, I guess now that we kind of know her name, should I always refer to her as her name? I mean, granted, to be fair, I'd refer to everyone else as their I mean, they're no longer the people that they originally were, so I guess she's no longer Suki, because she's just the android, just like everyone else is their number of self. They're not who they were before. They're not, you know what I'm trying to say. So, like I said, if next week's, even if it's not the season finale next week, it's still going to be interesting to see what goes down. And now moving on to this week's episode of Wynonna Earp, a very good episode. It basically, the spell has created a reality where Wynonna never existed. It's not just the fact that no one really knows Wynonna. We see like, oh, what everyone's lives. It's kind of like a what if episode, which I'm always a fan of what if episodes. Are basically like, hey, this is what would basically life would be like in purgatory if Wynonna was never around. We ended up finding out, like Doc ended up like finding his own way out of the well, and basically he runs what is Holiday's house, which is basically in this world, it's reality. He is the new Bobo, and the Revenants kind of follow him and everything. Just because he never had Wynonna to kind of course correct him, he was, still pissed about the whole Constance putting him in a well situation. So he found his own way out rather than kind of being helped out by Wynonna. I mean, obviously indirectly, but still. But what I found it most fascinating is that, obviously at the beginning, at the end of the last episode, we kind of saw that Waverly kind of remembered for a second because Jeremy Renner was like, oh, who's Wynonna? Actually, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is Doc remembered because at the last second, he grabbed the trophy. So when the spell activated, he was kind of given immunity from it. So that was kind of cool. And also seeing where everyone else was, I was under the impression it was Jeremy and Waverly that were getting together. Turns out that's not the case at all. It's actually her and Perry, which is kind of interesting. But I guess because Wynonna never came to town, Perry never died. I guess he still got saved. Certain events still played out the way they played out. But I mean, the reality is not meant to really make sense. It's just kind of stitched together because moments like Doc has to constantly tell everybody, it's like, how did you actually get to where you are right now? It's like, well, I don't know, because it was such a last ditch thing done by the Iron Witch that she didn't really try to fill in the details. She just kind of stitched it all together. So what was also interesting about this reality shift too is the fact of the matter is that there were moments of people still being able to kind of tap, once again, not even just Wynonna, but even their original lives in certain aspects. For example, Jeremy knew the widow's name. He's like, I don't know how I know their names. There's even a moment where Waverly kind of snapped at Perry because Perry was looking into how your family died and everything, but he did it behind her back. She's like, yeah, going behind my back and everything, doing something like that, finding out about it before I do. And she's like, I'm sorry, I don't know where that came from. So that was kind of another aspect of kind of a flimsy kind of glamour, to the point that who they were kind of broke through the glamour. I mean, there's also another example of that as the fact is that Rosita worked with Black Badge, which is kind of interesting. It's how would that have ever really played out like that? So it did seem more like it was just a stitched together thing. So that kind of took me by surprise, her being Black Badge and everything, which there's certain things that were brought up in this fake reality that kind of makes me think, there might be some truth to that. The fact is that might do a little foreshadowing. I mean, I guess it kind of counts in the real world right now anyway. The fact is that Black Badge has her own, Jeremy was kind of oh yeah, Black Badge has got its own motives and everything. It's trying to feed off this supernaturally charged place of purgatory. So it's it makes you wonder what is Black Badge up to now that they've kind of fallen back into the shadows. Going forward, they might be the next thing that has to be kind of dealt with. Once again, I do, the contracts set, it makes it seem like the contracts are up, but I'm wondering, is that even true at all? Black Badge will kind of show up at the end of this and kind of be oh yeah, in actuality, we still have these contracts and everything. Yeah, you're bound to us and stuff I don't know. I wonder if she's not that good at magic or whatever for her to not have been able to kind of do it well, because Doc's memories as well as everyone else's memories are kind of there. It's just not until things played out that, it started making everyone start thinking about certain things. We even had Bobo popping up in this world, which is kind of interesting too. He's kind of a crazy guy and everything, but he's up there oh yeah, telling Waverly about Wynonna and everything. It's oh yeah, you're my angel. I would never do anything to you, my angel. So I also love the fact is, along with Waverly getting married, the fact is that her and Hot's Nicole's looking at the clock, waiting just for Waverly to come in. It's all slow-mo and everything. She's got small on her face. It's no matter what reality, still madly in love with her. So I thought that was a beautiful thing. I even love later on the conversation. I love it that she's well, I could get off duty and essentially we could drive by, and she's oh, you do that for me? And she's I'd do anything to you for me, right? That too. It's you love it. It's so interesting because I feel I never hear Nicole talk dirty like that. So kind of caught me on guard for a second. That she really said that? That's pretty cool. But it also seems the spell didn't affect demons either. That's why Bobo, as well as or at least those touched by demons weren't really affected too much. I guess those who were in the know wouldn't be affected, but those who were outside of it, kind of maybe their minds are a little easier to kind of warp, because Bobo remembered, and so did the witches, because the widows were unaffected by it too. I mean, as considering as powerful witches that they kind of are themselves, so of course well, they're not witches. Well, I guess they're like spider witches or whatever the case may be, but I guess because of that, they were kind of immune to the spell as well. So, but it kind of all fell on Doc to kind of be the one to kind of put everything back together. Him and Dawes crossing paths, and Dawes doesn't like him because of all that Doc has done in this reality. He killed Nedley. He's done a lot of terrible things. So it's kind of sad that it ultimately led to like Doc, and he ended up shooting Dawes. He's like, Dawes, why aren't you wearing your vest? He's like, I will apologize for this. Like, you will kind of be okay for this. But then Dawes ended up shooting him, and it's like, oh man, that sucks. Because I was curious, because that made me wonder, like, because obviously at the beginning of the episode kind of showed you nearing the end of the episode, and so we only saw Nicole, Jeremy, and Waverly. So I was like, oh, where's Doc and Dawes in this whole situation? Not unless they're off doing something else. But it's like, oh yeah, because in reality they're both dead. Which even later on, you have Dawes being like, yeah, I finally killed Doc, but it felt empty. He's like, the fact of the matter is, like, I think he was my friend. And it's like, oh, because no matter how much they hate each other at some, like I brought that up. That's a beautiful thing, and they played that up in this episode too. Like, the fact of the matter is how far they've come. Yeah, they still bump heads from time to time, but at the end of the day, still got each other's back because they are like friends. Which once again is crazy to think about, considering where they were in season 1. So essentially hating each other's guts. I guess you could argue that's kind of reflected in this season. I mean this particular episode. So I did like the way Doc kind of responded to it. He's like, yep. I do always hate it when we fight. So, but kind of passing it on to Waverly, and Waverly's the one that kind of has to put everything back together. And then, I guess, ultimately it had to be her to do it too, because it's like, obviously Waverly's going to blame herself because she's like, this all happened because to save Nicole, she ended up giving the final seal to, like, everything happened because she made that promise with the Iron Witch, which is actually kind of sad when we actually break down why she did this. Yes, it was kind of a middle finger to Wynonna and them because she kind of blamed the Earp family for what happened to her sister anyway, but ultimately that's what this was all about too. It was also about getting her sister back, but it's like, even in this reality, her sister still died. She apparently has a missing eye, so it's like things didn't work out for her in this reality. We didn't really go far beyond that, but it's like, that kind of sucked, even through all that. So that's why she was more probably inclined to release this spell, because it's like, yeah, I wanted revenge. Yeah, I kind of wanted to kind of screw you guys over a little bit. I lost my sister, so I wanted you to lose yours, so I made her not exist, but it didn't do anything. My sister's still dead in this reality, so that was super bummer. So, I mean, that is kind of, like I brought up earlier, this was a very good episode of showing you what Wynonna does for people. Like, if Wynonna was never around, you see what kind of state the town would be in, because Doc would be leading the Revenants, and basically things would kind of unfold the way they did. But once again, though, that does beg the question of, like, is that 100% true, or was it, because it was such a jam-packed thing, like, was it even really ever really thought out too much? Was it just something like the Iron Witch just stitched together? It's like, cast a spell, but the glamour spell wasn't all that, like, powerful. Like, it was very weak to kind of begin with, so it was very flimsy and could easily kind of be broken through. That's why certain things, at moments when people kind of will remember Wynonna, because they were kind of slipping through the spell. So I'm curious to see, like, I'm curious to know, like, is any of that how things would kind of play out? And maybe so. I mean, I don't know. We do have the widows coming back together in this episode because they need each other, but then they find out, like, holy crap, even when we're together, wait, Cootie's body's not here. He's been missing. Oh, who's the one person who would know where his body is? Turns out it'd be Bobo, because Bobo is actually the one who moved his body, because while he was digging for the Constance's children, because he was digging for years, because of that, it ended up leading to him finding Cootie's body, and so he moved it just to kind of, I guess, a final middle finger to her or whatever. But for him, he's willing to help them. I was actually wondering about that. Like, he wouldn't actually help them considering everything, because I don't think he really cares enough about them. Especially, because Constance took Willa away from him, hid her away for so long. So I would think he'd be less receptive to help her fellow sister wives, But he's helping them because it helps him. Because he's like, I've already been through literal hell. I'm not going back. So he wants to help Clootie because Clootie will end up helping him. So I do thought it was kind of interesting. The fact is that even in that alternate reality, he made sure to get himself some boots and and a furred coat. But ultimately, at the end of the episode, obviously everything was kind of restored back to the way it was supposed to be. Most likely Doc and Dolls are alive again. Hopefully Rosita is too, because we didn't get to see it, but it sounded like things didn't go well for Rosita in that other world either. But we do see that Wynonna is back, and she knows what the plate is for now, but I mean, we didn't really get a chance to really dive into it because she ends up seeing Bobo and the widows, and she finds the third seal and sees that it's broken, which also means that there is no chance for immortality for Doc, which now makes him part of the world, 100% the world of man now. So he is 100% himself again. Which does beg the question, I guess, like, it healed him, but part of me, it's something I never really thought about before, is like, what if the ring no longer being being still in whole? Gosh, I'm stumbling. Sorry. The fact is, now that the ring is destroyed, what if it means that its existence in general, and it didn't even have to still be around, but its existence meant that he never had to worry about even getting sick again? What if it's type of situation where it's like, it kind of has vampire rules of like, if you were sick before you became a vampire and become human again, you're still sick or something like that? What if that's the case? Maybe it's not, it's probably overthinking it. Like, it probably like 100% cured him, so it probably doesn't work like that. So maybe it might. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. So, but we see that Wynonna kind of feels like her stomach. So it does seem like a combination of like, oh, the baby's coming, but at the same time, like, you also see that Clootie is kind of waking up. So things are definitely going to get very, very interesting next episode. I'm not sure if next week's episode is the season finale or not. I know it's like only episode 12. But I could have sworn, like, I remember going into this, that this season was going to be shorter. I actually thought it was only going to be, like, 10 episodes. Turns out that's not the case. But, I don't know. Like, so, next week's might be the season finale, but it might not be. That might actually not come up until, the week after next. So, we'll just kind of have to wait and see about all that to see whether any of that's true or not. But, nevertheless, even if it's not, it's definitely going to be interesting going forward in the next episode, seeing where everything kind of plays out in all of this. Also begs the question, what's up with the Iron Witch too? Like, what's going to happen with her? Like, is she going to be an ally they can rely on in the future? Or just kind of like, yeah, let's stay away from her because she kind of caused some trouble and we can't trust her because everything she says, like, there's kind of a loophole around it and everything, and manipulation. I mean, granted, maybe she won't do it now that, she tried what she wanted and it still didn't work out. So maybe she just needed, she needed probably Waverly to kind of give her what she wanted, kind of almost willingly, by adding it into like their agreement. So maybe it has to be something she could only acquire like that to kind of be able to make her spell work in the first. Nevertheless, I'm just curious where they stand with her when it's all said and done. But like, I'm also very interested to see what goes down next episode of Clootie. Also, like, saying, how does everyone react to like the full-on return of Bobo? Like, this is the real world, and Bobo's still around, so he's back now. So how is everyone going to handle that? Like I said, it's going to be very, very interesting in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.